Christopher Nolan is one of the most acclaimed filmmakers of our time, with hit movies like the Dark Knight trilogy, Dunkirk, and Interstellar. He's a five-time Academy or Oscar-nominated director and writer who pushes the boundaries of storytelling for the big screen. And now, in his new film, Oppenheimer, it's being called, well, his most impressive yet. It features Cillian Murphy playing the title role, that of famed physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, who oversaw the development of the first atomic bomb during World War II. He gave that first test the code-named Trinity. And in the film, he is recruited into the role. It became known as the Manhattan Project. He was director by Leslie Groves. Leslie Groves was an Army officer played by Matt Damon. We had a conversation with Nolan about the movie yesterday, and it started with a look at a scene where Groves asks Oppenheimer why another physicist, Enrico Fermi, is placing bets before the first test of the bomb.
What did Fermi mean by atmospheric ignition?
Well, we had a moment where it looked like the chain reaction from an atomic device might never stop, setting fire to the atmosphere.
Why is Fermi still taking side bets on it?
Call it gallows humor.
Are we saying there's a chance that when we push that button, we destroy the world?
Nothing in our research over 3 years supports that conclusion, except it's the most remote possibility.
How remote?
Chances are near zero.
Near zero.
What do you want from theory alone?
Zero would be nice.
Christopher, thank you very much for being here. A lot of people don't like to think about that, but you've spent years thinking about the power of these weapons and the man behind it. What was it that fascinated you about it?
Well, what really fascinated me about Oppenheimer was looking into the historical reality. His story is just the most dramatic I've ever encountered. The suspense, the twists, the turns, all that stuff. And this seminal moment, the Trinity test, the anniversary of which was last weekend, where they changed the world. They changed the world we all live in and the world we will always live in. I grew up in the United Kingdom in the 1980s at a time of real fear of nuclear Armageddon. It was in the pop culture. And our relationship with the fear of nuclear Armageddon ebbs and flows over time. It's almost like we can't worry about it for too long. We get exhausted or something. The problem is the threat never actually goes away.
The human drama of this story is Oppenheimer becomes this public star, the father of the bomb. He won the war for America, saved American lives, but he's acutely aware, along with many, many, many other scientists, that the world has changed. And if an arms race to build ever and ever bigger bombs launches, we're all going to be living a very different life. He tried to prevent it, and he was persecuted politically for it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about his story that a lot of people know a little bit about, but not much, and for me, somebody who knows nothing about Oppenheimer is the ideal audience member for this film, because then they get to be surprised and shocked by everything that goes on. And the film is really an attempt to jump into his head, go through his experience. And the book I'm adapting, called American Prometheus, is subtitled The Triumph and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer, and it's exactly that. He did incredible work for his country in the war. In a lot of ways, we seem to have won the war for the Allies. And then what happens to him in the period afterwards is pretty shocking.
Yeah.
And it's really a cautionary tale about the relationship between scientists, government, and the media.
I remember when this trailer dropped, I was sitting with some friends, and immediately we got excited, of course, a project of yours. But then we started this conversation about CGI and how it would be used in this film. But there isn't any CGI.
No, there's none.
And that was purposely done. How does that add to the element of the authenticity?
And there are lots of explosions.
Yes.
So they're real explosions.
It's really cleverly done, I'd have to say.
Well, thank you. One of the first people I showed the script to was my visual effects supervisor of several films, Andrew Jackson. And he's somebody who's worked with computer graphics, but he's also worked with analog methods, with old-time special effects, as it were. And I said to him, let's try and do this with no CG, because the thing about CG is it's incredibly versatile. You can do anything with it.
Right.
But as animation, as computer animation, it tends to feel a little bit anodyne, a little bit safe. So when you're making a movie that's textured, that you really want people to be in the room with these guys, to feel like they're in a real space, you need imagery that's going to have what I term that sort of bite, that kind of analog thing where it's a real thing you photograph.
Yeah.
So it can have incredible beauty. And we knew the Trinity test had to be the showstopper. It's the key thing in the film. It had to have incredible beauty and incredible threat. And it's difficult to make computer graphics threatening.
In the aftermath of the Trinity test, the U.S. government takes 2 models of that bomb, of course, drops them on Japan. The war is over. There's a moment of joy, of happiness, of celebration, of feeling like something terrible has passed. But then in the film, there's this incredible scene where Oppenheimer comes to realize psychologically that the really terrible stuff could be in the future.
Yet to come.
The way you portray that is with a scene in which he's looking out at an adoring crowd, cheering fans, and he starts to imagine a darker explosion right there in the room. And the face that your camera lingers on, a face that I don't know exactly how to put this, but is essentially suffering the trauma of a nuclear explosion. It's your daughter's face, I come to read. How did that scene come together?
She was on spring break, and she's cheap and available.
It's such a heavy...
Because everybody else in the film
keep
was...
it light.
Christopher, there has to be a deeper meaning.
I was going to say, I don't want to be psychoanalyzed on national television, so I resist any personal interpretations. But no, I mean, in truth, you know, not to get too heavy about it, but it's incredibly dark part of the film, a dark subject, and I don't want to give away too much for people who haven't seen the film yet going into it, but what we're looking for is his experience in his head. And so to me, it seemed to me that somebody who had been amongst the first people on Earth to witness nuclear fire, they would carry that with them and everything, and any time they're imagining the consequences of these weapons, they're going to be seeing the people around them, the people they love. They're going to be imagining that effect, and they're going to be able to imagine it with shocking clarity because of he'd actually stood there in that bunker and watched that. And so I think, you know, for me, yes, it was about looking to the people you love, looking to the things that you love, the world around you that you love and value, and imagining the destructive force of these weapons.
We also must mention the absence of some of the stars who... you know, left the London premiere early to join the picket lines. You yourself are a writer. What is it you hope will happen as a result of the friction between actors, writers, and producers and studios in Hollywood?
Well, it's an important moment. It's the kind of moment that comes along every few decades where the companies we work for, that we all work for, they changed the basis on which they do their deals and they make their money completely in the last 5 years. They have not changed the contracts to pay people fairly according to that new world of the way in which they choose to make their money. And that has to change. It's terrible. You know, it was very bittersweet to have the actors there supporting the film and then understanding that they needed to then leave and go on strike the way I've been on strike as a writer for over 2 months now. It's an incredibly important moment in our industry. Hopefully, the dramatic action now of SAG, you know, joining the strike will prompt the companies to much more swiftly look at how they have to shift the deal structure. And they do, and they need to do it so that we can all get back to work and get back to doing what we love.
I don't always say this, but you should watch this in the theater on the biggest screen you can get access to because it is larger than life, but it is real life at the same time, and you feel that real life when you're in a big theater. Christopher Nolan, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Actors join screenwriters on the picket lines to fight for better pay and protections against artificial intelligence. Fran Drescher is the president of SAG-AFTRA, and she has been very passionate and a fierce advocate on these issues. She joins us right now. Fran, how are you doing? Good morning.
I'm doing well, thank you, and good morning to you.
Thank you for joining us. So where do the negotiations stand right now? Are you talking to the other side? Has any progress been made?
I wish we would be talking to the other side. We said we would start talking to them immediately, but they're punishing us. They don't want to talk to us. So, oh, well, you know, they complain that it's going to shut down the business, but they don't come to the table. So you tell me what's happening.
So no meetings, no phone calls, no Zooms. Is there any communication at all?
No, I think stonewalling is their preferred technique.
Fran, Michelle Miller here.
That's what we're up against.
Well, the other side, as we call them, or calling themselves the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, which is bargaining for the Hollywood studios, which includes Paramount Global, Paramount Studios, and CBS, all which we must...
We are part of.
We are part of.
Of course.
They say the union Yes, they say the union has mischaracterized negotiations. And to that point, so what specifically was in the offer? Because they say they gave you a very impressive offer. Share it with us.
Well, first of all, you know, most of my members don't even meet the threshold to get health insurance, which is only $26,000 a year. And in most jobs, that would be considered a part-time job. So to go on strike is a major deal. I mean, it's a big responsibility, and they all wanted it in unprecedented numbers, 97.91. So why would we go on strike if we were offered such an incredible deal? It doesn't make sense. We're not making $78,000 a day like the CEOs of these companies. So it's insulting for them to imply that we're being kind of spoiled brats when people are journeymen, working people that just want to pay the rent and put food on the table, can barely make it to the threshold of health insurance in most cases. So, you know, what are we talking about here? Who are these people? They want to squeeze blood from a rock because all they're interested in is showing their shareholders how much money they're making and not losing. And where do they go? To the performer, who is the very foundation of their whole business model. It's very strange. I don't understand why people just don't do the right thing, why their whole culture doesn't shift to having character.
Yeah. Well, Fran, I mean, they would say that if you look at their streaming divisions, with the exception of Netflix, they're not making money in those divisions. So let's linger on the money question for a second here. You've got millions of Americans, many of them watching right now, who are paying $10, $15, $20 a month to multiple streaming services. They can watch The Nanny until recently on HBO Max. I think you can now watch it on Pluto, which is a Paramount property. Help us understand the difference in what you earn as a performer for a re-airing of The Nanny on a broadcast, old-school, linear, CBS-like channel versus a streaming re-air on an HBO Max or something similar.
Okay, just to be clear, we are on Max, but we're on several platforms as The Nanny. In the old days, when we did The Nanny, the business model was based on success was longevity of a series. And if you had eyeballs and ad dollars, you would stay on the air. So you can be on the air 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, 11 years. And then episodes, each season was 22 episodes was like the minimum, 24, 26. We did 28 many times. Okay, so then the show was on network television. Then it would go to syndication. It would be on cable. It would sell around the world. And it would have a long tail of revenue. Yeah. And people that worked on The Nanny, even people that were a day player or had a guest role, they're still making money off of that show because the show continues to make money for everyone up and down the ladder. It was a very good business model. When the advent of streaming was introduced, the business model changed radically. Suddenly, shows were called limited series, and they were given like you know, maybe 6 to 10 episodes was considered a season, and a series would go maybe 3 to 4 years if it was very successful.
But Fran, could you just bottom line it for us, if you could? It's two different business models completely. That's why you're on strike. That's why you're negotiating. If there's a re-airing of The Nanny, how much money do you get or a person on that crew gets in contrast to what you get if there's yet another streaming viewing right now?
You know, I can't even tell you that because it doesn't air in the same way. We don't know what the numbers are. Those people that run the streaming channels are very secretive. They won't tell us. So they'll give us some money that they say is what's coming to us, but we can't make enough when we're only doing 6 to 10 episodes and it's in a vacuum. There's no tail beyond it. The money we have to follow, that's in subscriptions.
Yeah, the takeaway there, Fran, follow the money. Fran Drescher, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know who else does something well? The best quarterback in the NFL. Yeah. And that's where we begin this hour with our exclusive conversation with the NFL's reigning MVP of the regular season and the Super Bowl, quarterback Patrick Mahomes. The Kansas City Chiefs star has already won 2 Super Bowl rings and 2 NFL Most Valuable Player awards while breaking record after record after record. And he's only 27 years old. We recently met with Mahomes and his wife Brittany in Los Angeles at the premiere of the new Netflix docuseries Quarterback. And we talked about football, family, and legacy. I want to start by genuinely asking, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. Obviously, the season was amazing. I won the Super Bowl and all that. But being a dad now of 2 and getting to enjoy that in the off season, I think that's been the best part. 2-year-old and a 6-month-old, so I'm in the thick of things.
How has being a dad changed your perspective on life and even the game?
You enjoy the moments, and I think now being able to go home and see my daughter and see my son, I have a better understanding of being present and enjoying it. That translates to the football field, and we've been on a heck of a run, but I'm trying to enjoy those moments because I know that it doesn't last forever, even though we want it to.
These days, it's hard to argue about who is the best player in the National Football League because Patrick Mahomes is making it easy for us.
Do you think about legacy at this point, or are you still focused year by year?
It's a little bit of both. I think if you play this position, you play this sport, you always want to think about your legacy a little bit and how you're perceived and how you can go out there and play the game. But for me, I've always said I just don't want to have any regrets.
Get up in there! Get up in there! Hey! Hey! Which is, in part, what led Mahomes to the new Netflix reality series, Quarterback, where cameras captured a trio of NFL QBs on an unfiltered journey through the 2022 season.
I actually talked to Peyton about it for a while. What stuck with me is he said, at the end of my career, I wish I would have done it so my kids could have seen what I was doing every day. And that hit me, obviously, having 2 kids. When my kids grow up, I want them to see that Dad wasn't just gone just to be gone. I was gone doing something to build, to be great. And so whenever they get older, they can see that how hard I worked.
Where do you think the league is when it comes to protecting players, more specifically quarterbacks?
We're in a better spot than we were, if you say 10 years ago. And so the more and more technology we can get, I think that helps out a ton. I always go for like the most safe helmet you could possibly have, even if it doesn't look the coolest sometimes.
Right.
And I might get a few jokes at me from the teammates. I'm like, man, I'm trying to protect myself for the long term.
I've talked to professional golfers, NBA players. What is it like when you're in the zone? The game slows down. I can see my swing and the ball going to the hole. It's the size of a basket.
But he throws from every angle.
For the best quarterback in the league, what is that like?
I think it's all from preparation. I watch a lot of Kobe videos, and if you ever watch anything about Kobe, he always talks about the shots that he practices thousands and thousands of times to take once, to take twice. And so whenever those moments do come up during the game, it's not like it's the first time I've done it. I've prepared for that. And I think that's why it slows down. You see the highlights, and everybody's like, oh, it's a highlight reel. It's being Superman out there, but they don't see that preparation.
Mahomes' hard work and preparation doesn't stop when he steps off the football field. He's a staple in the Kansas City community with his foundation work and his philanthropy.
You were on Time Magazine's most influential people of 2023. Now, on that list, President Biden, Supreme Court justices, Elon Musk. Do you ever sit back and think to yourself, whoa, life has gotten pretty wild?
No, I think about that all the time. I want to be someone that the kids can look up to and say that, hey, I want to be like Patrick Mahomes, and I want parents to think that, hey, that's a guy that I want my kid to be like. When I'm on TV or when I'm in the spotlight, I try to show off the right example.
I'm married. I got 3 kids, 4 brothers, big family. I got drafted in '03, and I just thought, oh, I'm going to go on this NFL journey by myself. And then I realized it's not really like that. It's everybody. It's not just on you. It's on friends. It's on family. And sometimes you have to answer for family. How do you balance dealing with your brand and also dealing with the family? And what advice do you give to young players who just got drafted, who really don't realize that it's not just you on this journey?
I think it's, first off, with the people around you, explaining that to them, that they have a new spotlight, even if they didn't necessarily want it. And then just having great people around you. I feel like I have a lot of great people around me, and everyone that I kind of have in my circle is people that I truly love.
And one of those people, your wife, Brittany.
He can't even walk. What are we doing?
She is passionate.
He thinks he's about to play a damn game. Has he lost his mind?
She's locked in.
I truly mean this when I say it. I think if I didn't have Brittany, I wouldn't be in the position I am now.
I remember talking with him like, who's going to be our new quarterback for high school? And he said, well, I think I'm going to be. And I looked at him like, what? You play quarterback?
Maybe I'll just put my hand on my belly.
Brittany and Patrick Mahomes met as teenagers in Texas before the fame, fortune, and scrutiny.
I was not prepared for this.
It's kind of hard to be prepared for this.
Yeah. At such a young age, we were in love, and I loved him with all of my heart. But, I didn't expect it to skyrocket this soon and us kind of just be thrown into the fire like this.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it, being thrown in the fire. There's always a moment for girlfriends and wives where they realize, oh, I'm not just in the background anymore. Yeah. Like, did you have one of those, as we call it, welcome to the NFL moments, where you're like, okay, all right, this is bigger than I thought?
When I started posting on Instagram, me screaming and getting rowdy in the suite, I think first time I did that, I got blown up, and it's like, she's crazy, this is too much. But I ultimately learned that you don't have to share everything that you do in your life.
What are you doing?
As people look at this docuseries, what would you like them to take away after watching Quarterback?
That he grinds.
You got this.
All year round, and he is so much deserving of everything that he's won and done.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I want to always be remembered as a great quarterback, but remembered more as a better person. That's my goal. I want people to see the love that I have for the game of football, the love I have for my family, the love I have for being a role model. And I think if they see that and they remember me as that, I've done what I need to do in the game of football.
Joining us now is producer, singer, rapper. This man does it all, will.i.am, and this is a first on CBS Mornings. How are you doing?
I am super, man. It's an honor to be here. Excited. It's just great here in France.
So how did this collaboration come about?
I've been a fan, a friend, and a supporter of Brittany throughout the years. Supporter as far as a person that goes out and listens to her music, a supporter as far as somebody that's there to help champion her through her times when she was, fighting for her liberation. She is an amazing person.
Now, this is her second song since her 13-year conservatorship ended. And I oftentimes think when it comes to artists, life and experiences will make you a better artist, or at least will transform you into a different place. What is it like working with Brittany now versus working with Brittany then?
Music is therapy for lots of people. People that make music, people that listen to music. Dancing is therapy for lots of people. People that make music, people that listen to music. And when you have that connection with music and rhythm and song and melody and harmony, and you express yourself through that, it helps you with anything that you're going through. And I see that every time I see her dance on her Instagram. I light up because I see how much she loves music. And to collaborate with her now, and then, when you're in the studio, when you're making music, that's the only thing that matters. So I see the same light, the same joy, the same love and passion.
And I agree. You mentioned seeing that light in Britney Spears, and for a long time, that light was quite dim. And that's because so many people had an opinion. This song is called Mind Your Business. Why did you guys go with that one?
When you're in the spotlight, a lot of times you just want to live your life.
Right.
And there's lyrics in the song that point to that. Not just for people that are in the spotlight, but even on my verse, I say, hands up in the cookie jar. They watching me, they watching y'all. That has to do with privacy and everyone else, every individual out there who feels that they are not living a private life in social media. And there's a thin line, and everyone deserves their version of privacy, is what mind your business is.
will.i.am, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for everything you do, your contributions, not just to music, but also culture. Enjoy your time with your bandmates and also France, or as you say, France.
Yeah, I'm in France, bro. Thank you so much.
Someone is joining us who wants to help bring Hollywood back to life. Now turning to some of those big issues behind the dual strikes that have shut down most of Hollywood. Actors and writers are now on the picket lines, including Guardians of the Galaxy star Sean Gunn, who you may also remember from the Gilmore Girls and other projects. Both the actors and writers say the shift to streaming has gutted their ability to make a living, and both want better protections against the use of AI, which they say cannot replace human creativity. On the other side of the dispute, the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers claim they've, quote, offer, quote, a historic pay and residual increases, including protections. A quick note, some of CBS News staff are SAG-AFTRA members, but we work under a different contract than actors and are not affected by the strike. Only on CBS Mornings, Sean Gunn joins us right now. Good morning, Sean. How are you doing?
Hi, good morning. It's good to be here.
So let's jump right into it. You and many actors are asking for fair residuals, and that's from the streaming platforms specifically. Why is that aspect important to you?
Well, you know, there was an old bargaining agreement where you would get paid for every time that if you did a television show, every time it aired, you would get paid based on the old agreement. Well, streaming came along and changed everything, and all of a sudden they started paying a licensing fee to own the product that you made in perpetuity, and they don't pay based on how many times people watch it. They don't pay based on anything. They just pay based on they make some kind of a deal with the production company. They buy the product for whatever amount of money, and then they can run it as many times as they want. And this is absolutely unfair. They, we need to know if we're participating in the success of a program, and if we are, we should participate in that. It's just, it's common sense.
Yeah. So, Sean, I mean, what you bring up is a good point. It's been reported that, for example, the actors on Friends over the years, with all the replays on TV, because of their deals, they made millions and millions and millions of dollars each, whereas there are stories of actors on streaming shows like Orange is the New Black. They're in lots of episodes. It gets viewed millions of times, but they're making pennies, if anything, for those additional views. Happens to writers as well. There are stories there. And so the question becomes, though, from the streamer's perspective, if we had an executive on, I'm sure they would say, hey, look, we're not making any money either, so we can't pay you if we're not making any money. What's your response to that?
Well, first of all, we're asking for a percentage of the profits. So if you're not making any money, okay, we'll participate in that. But that's disingenuous on their part if they're saying, hey, we're not making any money, because they won't reveal their numbers. Why not?
Yeah.
Why won't Netflix tell us how much money that they're making, on their shows? Why won't they let us know how much each show streams in a given day? They won't tell you any of that stuff. And I can promise you that when a streamer like Netflix says we're not going to release our numbers, it's because they're screwing someone over somewhere. That's why they do it. That's why they don't tell you.
Netflix is making money.
What the numbers are. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we just want transparency. I mean, tell us what you're making, and if you're making less, okay, we'll share in your pain just like we share in your profit. But they're not offering any of that. They're not offering us to share in their profits. They're saying, hey, we're gonna shut you out, not tell you anything about how much money we're making, and then we'll say, hey, we're poor. It's we're not making enough money. It's ridiculous.
We should note that we reached out to Netflix for comment. They declined to comment. Same thing with Warner Brothers, the makers of the Gilmore Girls. And you haven't heard back.
They don't respond to comment. They don't want to, like, you guys as journalists, ask them. If you ever get them on the phone, ask them, why won't you release your numbers? Why won't you let people know how much money you're making? They won't do it. But it's because they're trying to screw people over. And I'd be very I'd be very worried if I was a shareholder in Netflix. Like, oh, wait a minute. This company won't tell me how much money they're making? Why?
Sean, there's another concern here, and it deals with AI, and certainly likeness and the work that you're putting out. What's most concerning about the ability for you know, essentially what a lot of actors, SAG-AFTRA members are saying could be stolen from them?
Yeah, you know, AI is a big, massive can of worms that everyone has just opened up, and we're all looking at these worms. First of all, I would say it seems very, very clear that nobody should own your likeness in perpetuity. That seems obvious. Like anybody out there, you don't have to be a Hollywood insider to know that it's not fair for somebody to own your likeness forever. So we should make sure that that's not okay. But also, I think AI changes all the time, and I think that let's look at it every year. Let's not sign an agreement where we, you know, where we decide how actors are gonna be related to AI for 5 years plus into the future, because we don't know where that technology is going. So I think it would be much better to,
I'm sorry
to keep that short. And go ahead. I know I can talk all day. Sorry, guys.
I was going to say, tell us what you really think, but you really have. I appreciate your candor this morning. I did want to mention to our viewers before we say goodbye, just that if any executive from any of the big streamers wants to come on, we'd be happy to have that interview and ask some of these questions. And they are publicly traded companies in many cases, I think all actually. So the overall earnings are known, but your point about the breakout for streaming is well taken, and the number of views individual shows gets, that is often shrouded. Sean Gunn, thank you for your candor once again. Appreciate you being on.
Thanks, guys.
Our series, Changing the Game, highlights extraordinary women who are making a difference now and for future generations. This morning, we're introducing you to Jazmin Truesdale, who founded Aza Comics back in 2013. Now, she focuses on diverse women superheroes, something Truesdale struggled to find in comic books when she was a kid. So later, she created her own publishing company, Aza Entertainment. The first book in the series is called The Keepers Origins and features all-female superheroes with a mission to protect the universe. That's a pretty good mission. Joining us now, Jazmin's work is available, we should say, in more than 75 countries, and she's been a featured panelist at Comic-Cons nationwide. We say good morning to you, and I have to tell you, you describe Aza Comics as badass women doing badass things. I love saying that on morning television. Where did the idea come from? Was it the need to see yourself on the page?
Yeah, so it's like I always read comic books. I had hit a rock bottom in my life about 10 years ago and started reading them again, and Wonder Woman's my favorite.
Me too.
Yeah, so I wasn't really seeing a lot of people doing much with their female superheroes. This is before the Wonder Woman movie and everything. So I kind of talked to some people in the industry, found out that I wasn't the only one who thought that way, and said, I think I can do this. So pretty much I kicked off with just my leading black female character, Kala, and like a ragtag team of creatures. And then I was out one night with my friends, and it's like a group of us, and we're black, we're Latina, we're South Asian, and I was like, if I want to see myself, I'm sure they want to see themselves. And then that's kind of how the whole Keepers was born. It's like a group of women from different parts of the world, all fighting to protect the universe and having a hella good time while they're doing it.
I have to ask just real quick, do they go about it in a different way?
They do. So, how do you mean?
Yeah, different. Yeah, I was going to say different from what?
Well, different from men.
Yeah, so it's like they pretty much have kind of like their own way about going about things. It's kind of like I call it an intergalactic girls trip.
Oh.
Where you're like traveling the universe with your best friends.
Yeah.
But you're also like saving and protecting the universe at the same time, and I write them from the female gaze. So a lot of times when characters, especially women characters, are made, women have sat in a movie and we kind of rolled our eyes when we saw like that girl come on and she's supposed to be a track star, but she's falling all over the place.
Right.
Take a plot, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. So like,
you are spot on right there.
I write women from the female gaze. I talk to women and girls from different ages, asking them what they wanted to see, why they read comic books or why they didn't. And then when the book was created, I created it for women who wanted to read comic books but probably didn't have the time. So it's not like a traditional comic. It's like a combination between a traditional book, but then the action scenes are illustrated like a comic book.
Yeah, you know, I wanted to get to the universe and actual meaning of Aza, but you mentioned rock bottom. You don't have to go into details if you don't want to, but it seems like maybe that time in your life has motivated some of your writing since then. How has what you've been through helped you get through these projects?
Mostly it's from the way that I write. I kind of write these real world instances happening to these girls and how they would navigate them, or how we as women would wish we had navigated that thing that we wish we said, or that thing we wish we did. And so a lot of times, even though they may be battling supervillains and all of that stuff, they're handling them in very real, relatable ways that I hope inspire women when they're getting out there to kind of go for that dream or go for that thing that they wish they could have done before. So
I've got two questions. The Aza universe, what this word Aza, where did you come up with it? What does it mean? And then the follow-up is, you mentioned women and teen girls as the original target audience, but you also heard a lot from male fans. So just talk a little bit, if you could, about the male fans. But first, the Aza-verse, what does that mean?
So Aza, it's a girl's name. It means powerful, and it has like Arabic, African, and also like Hebrew origins, but generally it's a girl's name that means powerful or strength. And I thought that just was very poignant to the universe. And then also, we as women, a lot of us have like a support system. For me, it's my dad. He's like a super girl dad telling me I can do anything I want to do in this world, and I wanted to make sure that Aza Comics honored that. You know, those husbands and boyfriends that are stepping up at home to make sure that their women can go out there and thrive. And I wanted to make sure that I incorporated and showed love to the men that are out here supporting the women in their lives. And then also, when marketing Aza Comics, it threw off my marketing, because when you put in keywords for superheroes and stuff, it skews towards men. But then I was getting all of these sales from women. I'm like, what is going on? And in the comment section, it was men tagging the women in their lives, telling them, oh, I'm gonna buy this for my daughter, or bringing them to the Comic Cons to meet me and stuff like that. So men have been super supportive from the very beginning.
Just quickly, how tough is it to be an entrepreneur in the comic book world?
And you have advice.
It is tough, especially because with the industry that I'm in, the big two is like Marvel and DC. So a lot of times it's me kind of getting rejected in the beginning because I wasn't Marvel or DC, like news people who didn't want to report on me, or partnerships I was trying to make because they were either already partnered with Marvel and DC, or I'd get the thing, I talked to like every publisher out there, and they were like, this is fascinating, but we don't know what to do with this. And I was like, okay, well, I had finished my MBA like the year before, and I was like, all right, so we're gonna do this thing. I'm gonna make this company, and we're gonna publish it.
Marvel, DC, Aza, sounds
right.
World, watch out.
Marvel at your work, you know?
Look at that.
Jazmin Truesdale, we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
We're joined now by Susannah Collins, who's the co-host of the CBS Sports show Morning Footy.
So many of us want to see 3, right? We want the win. But, you know, the talent out there across the board has just risen to the occasion. What are some of the age too? But what are some of the other challenges facing this team to win it all?
Well, there's quite a few. As you mentioned, there's just more teams this year, and the competition has risen steadily over the last few years. So this is going to be a very competitive World Cup. For the United States, too, it's a young team. Yes. There's a lot of players making their World Cup debuts in this one as well. So the experience factor is one to consider. Also, injuries. Their depth is going to be tested in this one. And so they've only brought 2 center backs to this World Cup. So defensively, you have to hope that those Alana Cook and Naomi Girma stay healthy. Otherwise, there's a player like Julie Ertz who has an incredible amount of experience, but she can be really, really important, because if there's any injuries on that back line, expect a person like Julie Ertz to come in and kind of fill that hole for them.
So we live on a soccer-crazy planet, right? The game is beloved around the globe, but in the U.S., we're not as soccer-crazy as some other countries, yet our women's team is so good, so reliably good, they can reload year to year. What is it? What's the secret? Why are they so consistently better than the competition?
It's a great question. I think that in the United States, there's more resources, right? The women's game, because of the success of the U.S. women's national team and the high profile that they have had, there are more and more girls wanting to play this sport. And so when people see the sport through that lens and the investment that goes into it, it just becomes more accessible and the profile continues to raise. So I think that in itself is a big reason why we see so much hype around this team and women's soccer in the United States.
That's a great point.
And you see a lot of hype around those star players that are making a comeback right now, like Megan Rapinoe's coming back for the World Cup as well as Alex Morgan. But there are also a lot of fresh faces that we're going to be keeping an eye on. Who are you looking out for?
Oh, Trinity Rodman. Yeah. Trinity Rodman. Everybody get pumped for Trinity Rodman. She is poised for a breakout World Cup. The World Cup is usually when stars are kind of established, and she is such an exciting young player. So she is the daughter of NBA legend Dennis Rodman, and Trinity Rodman can ball out. She is so fast. She is technically so good. She's good on the ball. She's good off the ball, making those runs inside the box. She scored a brace in the U.S.'s warm-up against Wales before they headed to the World Cup. And so there's a connection between her and Sophia Smith up top that I think is going to be really, really special and hopefully generate a lot of goals.
We'll be watching them and the whole team. Susannah Collins, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.